Welcome back to the Losheim Gap, 2200 hours, 16 December 44, turn 8. Well, I didn't show you the AI turn and it ended up being very interesting. Our grumpy greyhound shot himself into oblivion in the north. The American unit reclaimed the bridge at Hofen. The American unit overlooking the road managed to shoot himself into disruption, so that's good news for us. And further to the south, the two units down here have also managed to find themselves isolated and disrupted, so it looks like our road clearing operations have been relatively successful. For obvious reasons, the two small townships of Rockerat and Krinkelt were the scene of a famous American defence just to the east of this combined township. The Elsenborn ridge is actually just behind this location, but the defence lasted so long that the 12th SS eventually went south through Bulge. I mentioned the Malmedy massacre in the last video, and that actually took place in Bulge. I believe that exit location there to the northwest is Malmedy itself. So this is the big picture of the northern flank of the Battle of the Bulge, with Monschau in the north and basically Bulge in the south. In the north of the map, the 272nd takes control of Konzen, which has been reduced to rubble. And the 12th SS reconnaissance unit decides to have a look around the north of the map. I'm presuming there will be a defender in Monschau, so I'm just going around the perimeter to see who I can find. The AI does cop a bagging at times, but I was reasonably impressed with how the AI identified the bridge to Monschau has obviously been an important hex for the Americans regarding their supply, and managed to push me out of there, so I thought it might be appropriate to give an Onya to the AI. So not a lot I can do there with disrupted units, so try and breach that road from a different angle. So the 326 primary mission is still to keep the road clear. Further south we have the luxury of artillery. Onto this American unit, and now the 12th SS is in place. I'm pretty sure I should be able to displace this American unit. Right, so on this part of the map, that was the big battle, and we seem to have accomplished that mission quite handily. So it gives us the opportunity to move more of the 12th SS forward. Movement and combat at night is always a balancing act, given the tactical expediency of the moment and the cost of fatigue in subsequent turns. But at night time, movement in travel mode on roads or rail lines does not get the disruption role that it does if you travel in deployed mode. So that is something to think about at night time. If you can move your units along the road in travel mode, you don't get the disruption role, but you'll still accrue fatigue, of course. As you can see, the lead 12th SS unit is only one forest hex away from getting into that clear terrain, and from there it'll be a pretty straight run through to Monschau. Only risk now is there's an engineer or American engineer unit lurking somewhere and might blow that bridge. So that really is the only issue here which could slow us down. So meanwhile, down south, our big attack was against those two American armoured units down south. So reasonably expensive, and that seems to be the trend at the moment, that our attacks are being successful, but they're getting increasing resistance from the Americans. But we have that important junction more or less under our control now, so that should restrict the American supply to those units to the north. In fact, this battle area around Krinkelt, it was while I think it was the engineer or an infantry unit was taking the glory for being the defender, the commander himself said it was thanks to the overwhelming American artillery that they were able to delay the Germans for so long. So I'm wondering, as we push towards the 500 point mark, if we do get increasing evidence of American artillery. Certainly you could see by that last attack it was no pushover, and we took quite decent casualties. But I think at this stage the war's still looking pretty good for our Axis advance. The 1st SS, as I mentioned last time, is coming from the south of the map because of the traffic and the roads. That'll take a few turns to get into play. So need to be careful we don't push the red 12th Volks Grenadiers too hard, or the 3rd Fallschirmjäger. But at this stage they're doing a pretty good job for us. So in the south there was a lot of administration type movement. during the turn, trying to get the 1st SS in some sort of order, moving towards the front. You can see the leading units there have almost cleared the forested area. So I'll only take 2 more turns perhaps. We could wait for the daylight turn to spring them into action. They're certainly not far away. Once again, that steel bridge to the south of the 500 pointer, that'll be important, so I'll be interested to see if the AI is intelligent enough to blow it perhaps at this stage. And that was really about it for turn 8. And there's the AI going away. The AI tends to just shoot until exhaustion. Rightio, night turn and mud by the colour of the map. There we go. And the victory dialogue, well, here we go. Our losses are certainly creeping up. We used to be 2-1 and now we're closing in on 1-1, which is really what you expect, I suppose, as the attacker in good defensive terrain, is to lose more people than the defender. So let's confirm the weather conditions, or the ground conditions. Right, so it's soft conditions, and as we're still in the night turn, the visibility is 1 kilometre. So soft versus snow, what does that actually mean for our movement? In comparison, it's more expensive for foot, ski, armoured car and tracked vehicles. Our bicycle units, as motorcycle and motorised, have a increase in performance versus snow. But overall, our main units are of course foot and tracked at this stage, so it's a net negative for us. The exception to these environmental conditions modifiers is travelling in travel mode on primary roads. So you can see if these mud conditions or soft conditions continue, this primary road movement will become even more important, and our overall strategy of clearing the roads is even more important as well. So this particular move of moving this 3/22nd div unit to have its under control over the road there has 2 purposes. One, to block supply coming down that road to the American units further south, and 2, to clear the 2 road hexes that are in the forest. I think they're the pretty obvious ones to defend if you are on the defender's side. An interesting happening here, as I withdrew the 326th units, or the red units, in a rush to see that the 12th SS units get to travel along the road, I inadvertently put our artillery units out of contact with the Americans, because the 326th units were acting as spotters for the artillery. So that was a bit of an unpleasant surprise, and hence why perhaps these attacks didn't succeed as I hoped they would. And that was caused by me considering the road stacking limit. Obviously it's a priority to get the 12th SS mobile units through, and of course only the first 250 get to move in the road movement mode. So the rest of this turn was mainly about artillery and movement along the primary roads, and the odd attack against units which I thought had some importance regarding the road network. Here I was just trying to get rid of this unit so that stack of German units could then surround that stack of American units with the headquarters on. And also hopefully get rid of some of the broken units just using artillery. So there is a type of battle forming here around that Elsenborn ridge area. So after a long night, turn 10 and dawn rolls around. Conditions are similar, still soft. Visibility is improved to 2 kilometres. Victory conditions, pretty similar to last time we looked. So turn 10 of 15, so only 6 turns to go. So looking at the time and distance, this could still be a close run thing. The race is on to get enough troops to make a reasonable attack on Monschau. And the 12th SS Regiment and the 326th Volksgrenadiers continue their battle to traverse this road towards Monschau. I'm not sure if they're going to be able to make it with the amount of American units in front of us, but you never know. A couple of good attacks might free us up a bit. And the theme of our attacks becoming more expensive seems to continue. I thought I had a reasonable chance with this attack, and 1 vehicle for 4 men. Now that is rich. So all we can do is push our troops forward. And see how we progress. Meanwhile down south, the 12th Volksgrenadiers are still making quite reasonable progress. It's interesting how our little battle here is progressing against this ridge line, which is a north-south type ridge line. The actual Elsenborn ridge was east-west, but it's interesting that's how the shape of this battle has progressed. The undisrupted American battalion here has certainly pounded him with artillery, and all I managed to produce was rubble. So I continue to try and beat him out of there, but it's proving very difficult to disrupt at this stage. Although those last two attacks were a little bit more expensive than I'd hope, nonetheless I think it's given me pretty good positional advantage now. I'm up on the ridge, so I don't have that disadvantage of attacking from a low location to a higher location. Split the force in half. Most of his armour and his infantry are now to the right or the east of our Volksgrenadier units. So we only have this artillery unit and the engineer unit between us and Elsenborn. Goodness knows what defenders are there. And meanwhile down south, the 1st SS Panzer Division is going to make its presence felt down here and put some pressure on this American unit defending the steel bridge. Note that this move should put this American unit out of supply, and because he can't move from enemy ZOC to enemy ZOC, he should be pinned in that location. So from this point forward, it was more of a case of admin type moves, moving units forward along the primary roads. So I'll spare you the gory details. So we progress to turn 11 or 0800 hours. So it's shaping up to be an interesting finish, I think. Can we take Elsenborn and Monschau in the north with 5 turns remaining in the scenario? Well, time will tell. I'll see you next time, and thanks for tuning in. Enjoy your gaming. Cheers.